He seems friendly. If there is one thing Crytek is known for, it's blowing up your computer by pushing your graphics to the absolute limit, and then some. It should come as no surprise then that they tend to excel at graphics demos. In 2001, one of the earliest CryEngine demos was to show off the environment for Project Exile. So they whipped up a jungle map and decided that there needed to be something in said map to show it off better. Even if it was unrelated to Exile, they wanted something jaw-dropping to focus the flyby on. Well, there was a tropical island on it, and y'all probably know where this is going. Adding dinosaurs was the obvious move, and it did wonders for bringing the then state-of-the-art graphics to life. This was amazing stuff for the time, and it was worth it. Project Exile would eventually become Far Cry, and this whole thing would be forgotten over the years. Or was it? Hi! Jump ahead to 2015 and VR is the hot new thing. Oculus is making great strides in bringing VR to market, and Crytek wants to be part of it. Created for the GDC of that year, Crytek wanted to get other game developers interested in not just VR, but CryEngine's capabilities in VR. So they made a short VR experience named Back to Dinosaur Island, in reference to their original Exile demo. This short did a lot to hype up VR, and solidified the console as the newest home for virtual dinosaurs. Seriously, there is now an entire genre category in the Oculus store dedicated to dinosaurs. That's kick-ass, and you know it. Anyway, the experience is understandably short, only being a few minutes long. Got to keep those cue lines moving. The story is relatively simple, with no dialogue or narration. You wake up in a nest of large dinosaur eggs. Whether or not you are a human or baby dinosaur is not made clear in the demo itself, though the official website says we are a baby dinosaur. After a moment to orient yourself, you catch the sight of a small herbivore getting a drink. My brain immediately assumed it was a Camptosaurus while playing the first time, but considering the other featured dinosaurs, it could honestly be anything. They weren't exactly going for realism in either the designs or the roster. The herbivore runs off, leaving us alone with a giant dragonfly, who quickly proceeds to harass us. The opening instructions say we can dodge things, but I don't think you can actually change anything. The insect always does the same movements, and every time he manages to hit your forehead. Ow, bitch. This part is really good at getting the player immersed in the world, so that by the time the bug hits our forehead, the player feels that thump if only for a brief second. It's really well done. Our epic battle with the insectoid menace is interrupted though. Oh fuck. Yeah, when the website said we were a baby dinosaur, did it mention if we were a T-Rex or not? I don't think this is our dad. Oh, thank God. Aw, fuck. And that was Back to Dinosaur Island. Now you know why I had to go to the website to learn we were a baby dinosaur. Either way, this is a neat demo. While most VR games are heavily stylized or otherwise look visually mediocre, it's nice to see someone really push the system's graphical limits. From a gameplay standpoint, the hypothetically interactive parts don't work, and there are multiple awkward pauses. The Rex in particular is up close to your face doing near nothing for a surprisingly large amount of time. He's close enough that you can count his scales, which I suppose is the point, really. Overall, though, it's a great glimpse into the future of the technology, and my only real complaint is that it left me wanting more. Good thing they delivered. Let's take a look at the second VR demo in the Dinosaur Island series. I can't tell if he's big or if I'm small. Back to Dinosaur Island 2 is the standalone follow-up to the previous game. While still a graphics-focused tech demo, it opted to add a bit of world building and gameplay rather than just be an interactive movie. Don't get me wrong, the gameplay is extremely basic, but there is a fail state unlike previous demos. We play as an explorer climbing up the side of a cliff that happens to be inhabited by pterosaurs, who aren't too happy to be disturbed from their nests. Since it was made for E3 2015, it is still extremely short, but like the first VR game, it is worth the experience, especially in the context of early VR. However, the gameplay hasn't aged well at all. First, you control the location of your hands by looking where you want to be, then use an Xbox or similar PC controller to grab. Yeah, you heard me right. This game is not compatible with VR controllers. You have to use a PC controller and only to press a couple buttons. This can easily lead to funky head motions or user difficulties, but as this was very early into VR, this is forgivable. As awkward as the controls are, they aren't particularly difficult. What is difficult is seeing anything. Like the previous demo, the resolution is weirdly low, though at least now the screen hasn't been blurred for no reason. Still, the graphics themselves are still insanely good for VR, and the environment close to the camera looks great. Taking a more in-depth look at the story, we open with a debriefing.
You have a solid hold? Good. Let's get you up there. We have life forms detected at Crash Site 2.
We start already close to the top of the mountain with just a little more ways to go. You seem to be alone up here. Just you, the voice in your ear, and the billion-foot drop. A series of mechanical zip lines have already been set up to pull you to the top. All you have to do is grab onto them and... Is that our hands? What are these tiny baby hands? For comparison, here are the sizes of my adult female hand and a typical adult male hand. The hands of the climber are literally, not exaggerating, baby-sized. All I can think of is that they made the hands small so they can be close to your face without obscuring your vision. It doesn't show much on recorded footage, but my god are these hands tiny. And it might be the most distracting thing in this game called Dinosaur Island. I'll try my best to ignore them from now on, but there was no way in hell I wasn't going to address it in this review. Anyway, grabbing onto a zipline handle with both hands starts the mechanism to pull you up the ropes. You can't go backwards in this demo, so don't grab a new handle until you've seen all you want to in that space. As you are pulled up, several sleeping pterosaurs will be offended by your presence, and will jump off to fly. You get surprisingly close to these guys, and they often miss you by centimeters as they flee. Many of them are also partially hidden, either by the cliff edges or by blending into the rocks. At some point, the rope path will split, but rather than give you two separate narratives, it instead shows you the same events but from different positions. You don't technically need to play the game twice to see everything, but there is a slight difference in experience if you do. Partway up, you get to see a family of pterosaurs complete with small offspring fleeing from their nest. One particularly small baby hesitates to fly. Calm down. This was a showroom demo. I doubt they wanted anyone to leave their booth sad. I do appreciate the non-verbal conflict though. Speaking of, we've woken up the big one. He'll fling down clumps of dirt and similar debris which can hit the player. Despite the screen effects, I don't think the debris actually affects the player otherwise, and I don't think it can lead to a death. That is, unless the player is distracted enough to let go of the handles. Despite the angry rain of dirt, the player climbs ever upward. Just short of the top, the big male will give up and dive. The valley is filled with pterosaurs flying about, and the big one will occasionally drift by to scream angry slurs.
In your general direction. Your mother was a hamster, and your father smelt of elderberry.
Finally, we reach the top. Okay, So that is one ugly sauropod. It's not the ugliest I've seen, but it's got a bad case of elephant. And hey, if you look into the distance, you can see more sauropods and even some bipedal herbivores from the previous game. After you get a good eyeful, stare at the various markers to scan them. In a surprising case of last-minute world building, we appear to be investigating the survivability of the nearby structures. Not only is Dinosaur Island a dinosaur planet, but it's a planet we are stranded on. But before we can get any more info, show's over. Damn, I really wanted to see more. Well, I'm in luck in that regard, but I'll get into that in a moment. The demos were all well received, and after their initial run at their respective events, they were eventually released onto Steam. Unfortunately, for no official reason, both of these demos were removed from the Steam store some years later. As of the writing of this video, neither game is available in any official way. If you managed to download the games while they were available, they are still in your Steam library to download and play. If you didn't grab it during the window availability, you're shit out of luck. Or are you? The fact I was able to play these games kinda gives it away, but there is a way to download and play these games yourself even if you didn't do so when they were available in the Steam store. Since these demos were free, we can use the Steam store run functions to download the games, and in doing so they are added to our Steam libraries forever. First, make sure you are logged into Steam, and the Steam app is on in the background. Then on Windows, bring up the run function. On Windows 10, press the Windows key and R at the same time. This might not be the same on past or future systems. In the taskbar, type in this for Dinosaur Island 1 and this for Dinosaur Island 2. Only use one at a time. Steam will start the install process and you are in. You only have to do this once per game and they'll be permanently added to your library. This also works on other no longer available free games and demos as long as you know their game ID. Remember that Back to Dinosaur Island both 1 and 2 require a compatible headset. Now, you might be good to go from here, or you might be like me and have a ton of additional technical issues because nothing can be easy, can it? That is more of a case-by-case thing though, and I've already spent too much time on this section, so I'll leave troubleshooting up to you guys. Feel free to post your technical difficulties in the comments and see if any smart people feel like stretching their IT skills. I'll also help if I had the same issues. I value the archival of games, and letting random people play no longer officially available tech demos is in that category. This brings me to the epilogue of this story. While there is no Back to Dinosaur Island 3 as of this video, a large amount of the assets, and of course technology, were used in future Crytek VR titles. The idea of climbing cliffs and the neat environments were utilized in The Climb, a VR rock climbing simulator. I've played a bit of it and I have to say it's pretty good. I think someone with a fear of heights would get more out of it, but there is definitely some zen in being in the showcased environments. It even got a sequel. Thankfully, those games use proper VR controllers and you've been cured of your baby hands. But what about the dinosaurs, I hear you ask? Well, the concept of being stranded on a dinosaur planet, as well as many animals and set pieces, were used to create Robinson the Journey. Robinson was one of the earliest full-length VR titles and is still arguably the best dinosaur title in VR. I briefly considered including it in this video, but ultimately decided to give it its own video later this year. As of making this video, I have yet to play it, but I do know it suffers from a lot of flaws early VR titles tend to, so I expect some technical difficulties. Still, expect it sometime later this year. Trust me, I'm excited to play this game. And I think that's about it for this video. Although they're no longer officially available and haven't particularly aged well in their relatively short lifespans, I'm glad to have been able to experience the Dinosaur Island demos and archive them for all time. They are a key stepping stone in this early VR era, and they paved the way for other VR games to include their own prehistoric depictions. It was also nice to see VR graphics pushed to something comparable to the 360 era, when a vast majority of VR games look like low poly asset flips or baby's first Unity project. Not saying VR doesn't have some amazing titles regardless of graphics, but in this immersive and fully 3D setting, realism-focused graphics can go a long way. Should you play these? If you are a dinosaur fan, sure, but I suspect that just playing Robinson would be the better option. If you want to see my raw blind reactions to these games, I'll link my Let's Play and streaming channel in the description. I warn you now that I had so many technical difficulties that I forgot to type in the line of text that removes the black bars from recordings, and I opted to keep my raw reactions rather than re-record. Most of the videos on that channel are of a higher quality, I assure you. I've also uploaded my blind playthrough of Northern Journey on there if you want to get a heads up on the next full-length review. If you like this video, it would go a long way for you to like and subscribe. In these early months of my channel, I'm keeping a close eye on my analytics to see what kind of reviews y'all want next. Either way, I'm mainly just grateful you've made it this far into the video. And with that, I suppose I'll see you guys next time we return to Dinosaur Island. Though, hopefully we'll see each other before then, as I have a lot of awesome videos planned. Okay, bye.
Achieved with CryEngine.